All right. Hey, what's up, everyone? Hey, welcome to Real Life. My name is Jake, and I have the unbelievable privilege and honor of being the lead pastor around here. And whether you are inside, outside, or online, I'm so grateful that we get to hang out today. If you were with us over the last few weeks, then you got to hear from some of our church planters. Those are guys that with their families have helped start brand new churches and communities all over the state of California. And it was so great to hear from them. I hope you were encouraged by them, because I know they were encouraged by you. And it's amazing what happens when you give your generosity combined with our generosity. We put it all together. It makes a massive difference in Santa Clarita and all over the state. And so as much as I enjoyed the breather, I'm so grateful to be back with you today, because this weekend marks a very special weekend in the life of our family. It was a year ago this weekend that we officially stepped into this role as the lead pastor of Real Life. So it marks a year for us. It's been amazing. Last August, we moved from Orange County up to Valencia. It was approximately 299 degrees outside as we were moving our stuff inside. And we showed up with a ton of optimism and enthusiasm, but also a little trepidation, because my predecessor, a guy named Rusty George, he left some very big shoes to fill. Mostly because he's weirdly tall, but also because he's a great teacher and communicator, one of the best around. And I can honestly say, at least to my face, not a single one of you have compared the two of us. You haven't longed for the good old days or the way things used to be, but instead you've encouraged me, and you've been hospitable and loving to our family, and you've taken almost every step that we've asked you to take. And I know that that might sound normal around here, but I promise that in the church world, that's not guaranteed. And it says so much about your character and the community that God has built here over the last 25 years. And so, friends, will you put your hands together and celebrate with me all that God did last year as we look forward to what He's about to do? I am supremely and wholeheartedly convinced that God is not done with us yet. I believe that the first 25 years of ministry here at Real Life were nothing short of remarkable, and it was all a preparation season for what He wants to do in the next season. In fact, I'm convinced that for some of you in the next 12 months, it will be the most significant year of spiritual growth that you have ever experienced in your life. Like some of you in the next 12 months, you are going to baptize a family member that you've been praying for years. And some of you, you're gonna sit next to your husband in church for the first time ever. Some of you in this next year, get this, you're gonna start reading the Bible on your own, and you're gonna like it. All right, like that's crazy. I know it sounds crazy, but I promise it's gonna happen. Some of you, you're gonna discover your calling and what you were made for. Some of you, you're gonna join a team, and it's gonna be so outside your comfort zone that you're gonna think it was a mistake until a moment where God reveals the difference that you're making, and you will never look back. I believe so much in this next year that God is gonna grow you, He's gonna grow me, He's gonna grow all of us, and I cannot wait to celebrate it. Now, today, before we jump into the series, I want to invite you to participate in something. On the way out today, you have the opportunity to pick up one of these. It is a Real Life branded notebook. We're selling them at cost. It's $5, super affordable. And what I'm hoping is that on your way out, you'll grab one of these, and then you'll start bringing it with you on the weekends to engage by taking notes during the teaching that you hear from our teaching team. Now, I want to tell you why I want you to do that. You're not taking notes because there's a test at the end of the service, like in school. You're not earning frequent flyer miles so you get to heaven faster than the rest of us. That's not what we're doing. It doesn't make you a super Christian. What it's going to do is help you engage with what you're learning here so that you can take it with you all week long. See, one of the worst things that can happen is that you sit in this room or outside or online and you feel inspired, you feel motivated, maybe even feel convicted. You know exactly what you ought to do about it, and then as soon as service is over, all the distractions of life kick in. You start scrambling for that tag to pick up your kid. You're not really sure what pocket you put it in, or you start thinking about your next meal, and then all of a sudden that inspiration and conviction, it just disappears. And so what we're hoping is that if you write some things down, you'll be able to take it with you all week long, refer back to it. It'll help you be a better participant in your group discussions, and hopefully it'll help you grow this fall and well beyond. Now, the way that you take notes is entirely up to you. There are as many note-taking styles as there are personalities. For instance, Trudy, my wife, and I, we could not be more different in our note-taking style. You can see me over here, boring, bullet points, barely legible handwriting. Her over here, she's very artistic. She likes drawings. She's always been cooler than me. And so how you take notes is entirely up to you. But I'm hoping as you engage, it'll help you take this with you all week long, and we can see how God grows us in this next season. So grab one of those on the way out. Today, we are kicking off a new series called Can't Stop, Won't Stop. And whether you know this or not, what you and I are doing right now is a continuation of a movement that God started over 2,000 years ago in a different culture, in a different language, on a different part of the globe. You and I aren't creating something, we're continuing something, and it is our privilege as the church to run our leg of the race. We are grabbing the baton from previous generations, and now we get to represent Jesus in our community, in our world, during our lifetime. So you and I, we're not creating church. We're not inventing the idea. Unless Jesus returns in our lifetime, we won't finish the church, but we have an incredible privilege to run our leg of the race. Now, I want you to know that this is an active participation. That there's not a sitting around watching the race. We get to run the race and carry the baton in our lifetime. Now, as a pastor, I am deeply aware that there are a lot of different opinions in our world about the church, about its validity, about its goodness, about its contribution to our culture. Some of us, we would say that church has been a strong source of community. This is where you found your people. They're your best friends. These are the people you would call at 2 a.m. in a crisis. They would be the first people by your bedside at the hospital. This is your community. Others of us, we would say, well, I believe the church has been a positive source of social change. That throughout history, many of the positive advancements we've made as a society began in the hands of believers or within the church. Whether you know this or not, many of the elite universities in our country started with a strong religious background. Places like Harvard and Yale and Princeton. So higher education is a result of the church. Many of the hospitals in our communities were started by believers in Jesus. The civil rights movement was led by the Black church in the South. All these positive advancements throughout history got their roots in the church. Others would say, man, this is a place of encouraging source of character development. We hear from parents all the time that they want their kids in a place like this so that it can reinforce the lessons that they're teaching them at home and help them raise these children that God has given them. All really good things. But here at Real Life, we don't believe in sugarcoating anything. We want to tell the full truth. And we would have to admit that there are also some less than flattering opinions about the church in our world. If you need any evidence, open any social media platform or Google reviews, you will find them. Some people have accused the church of being a place of organizational corruption. And it's true, there are a myriad of examples of Christians leading poorly. And they took God-given platforms and used them to accumulate personal privilege. Instead of serving Jesus' agenda, they served their own agenda. Others would say that it's the home of hypocrites. Either churches don't practice what they preach, or they participate in selective sin shaming. They don't bring up their own struggles, but man, are they good at putting a spotlight on the things that other people struggle with. Recently, the cry from our culture is that the church is politically entangled and that the lines have been blurred about what's allowed to be talked about in church and what is now today been deemed as political issues. And so it would be intellectually dishonest for the critics of the church to say that the church has never done anything good, but it would be equally dishonest for the lovers of the church to say the church has never done anything bad. And so over the next few weeks, we want to dig into the roots of the movement that you and I are participating in right now. Figure out, why did it start? What was it all about? And can we reclaim anything that we've lost? And what I promise you is that over the next 5 weeks, if you listen to all of these, it will be impossible. I mean, literally impossible for you to walk away from this series thinking, I don't need to do anything. We're going to see that the roots of this movement was always an active one, that its people were always in action, and that means you're going to need to do something, and I'm going to need to do something, and God's going to grow us all to do it together. And so if you have a Bible or a Bible app, I'd love for you to head over to the book of Acts. It is the 5th book in the New Testament. And if you have one of those, a Bible or a Bible app, I'd love for you to slap a bookmark in it because we're going to be there for the next 5 weeks. Now, this is called the book of Acts, and it's not spelled A-X-E. That's what middle schoolers use to cover all their body odor, all right? This is called Acts, A-C-T-S. And maybe if you have one of those Bibles, yours is called Acts of the Apostles. And the apostles were the early church leaders. And what we're going to see is how God used those men and women to jumpstart the movement that you and I are a part of right now. Probably a more accurate description of this book of the Bible would be the acts of the Holy Spirit through the ministry of the apostles, but that's a mouthful and it's bad branding and no one would ever say it. So we're going to stick with the book of Acts. And what you and I are going to see is the miraculous and clumsy and spirit-driven and Christ-centered and human-led and imperfect and exceedingly beautiful start of the church. And what we're also going to see is that how us as a church here at Real Life get to be a part of the movement that God started a long time ago on the other side of the world, and we get to carry the baton in our lifetime. So let's jump in. We're going to begin Acts chapter 1. We're going to read the first 2 verses together. It starts like this. It says, "In my first book, I told you, Theophilus, about everything Jesus began to do and teach until the day he was taken up to heaven after giving his chosen apostles further instructions through the Holy Spirit." All right, press pause right here. Right here in the first 2 verses, we meet our author, and he's a guy by the name of Luke. And if you're familiar at all with the Bible, then that name might sound familiar because there is another book of the Bible creatively titled Luke that he wrote. And so Luke and Acts are companions to one another. You could think about Luke as season 1 and Acts of season 2 of your favorite Netflix show. Luke was the life and the history and the ministry and the death and resurrection of Jesus. Acts is going to be the beginning of the early church. And as you know from your favorite Netflix show, season 2 always starts with that previously on recap of what happened in season 1. That's like these first 2 verses. They're saying, here's what happened last time, but you don't need that previously on recap because you've been watching the same show for the last 8 hours and you don't need any reminders, and honestly, you need to go outside. All right, you need to go outside and get a hobby. You're watching too much TV. So here's Luke, and he addresses his buddy, and his name is Theophilus. Now, Theophilus was his friend, but he was also the financier of Luke's research project. See, Luke, by training, was a doctor. And so this is going to read like someone that really cares about the accuracy of details. So look how Luke begins his history of the early church. It says, after his suffering, that's Jesus, he presented himself to them and gave many convincing proofs that he was alive. He appeared to them over a period of 40 days and spoke about the kingdom of God. One occasion, while he was eating with them, he gave them this command: "Do not leave Jerusalem, but wait for the gift my Father promised, which you have heard me speak about. For John baptized with water, but in a few days you will be baptized with the Holy Spirit." Now, Luke could have started this history of the early church in any way that he chose. So why did he do it like this? In these first few verses, he lists 7 different verbs. It says presented, gave, appeared, spoke, eating, wait, and baptized. Why would he do it like that? Well, friends, Christianity is not primarily a set of beliefs, philosophies, or ideas. Christianity is primarily a response to a historical event. You see, as the church, we are not a group of people that just so happen to agree on some ideas on how to best live life. We're not a group of people that all subscribe to the same influencer that tells us how to be the best version of us. Because if that was true, then the very moment that we find a more appealing philosophy, or the very day that we find a lifestyle that affirms all of our desires, we'll bail on Christianity and take up the new way. Instead, this is a response to the historical fact that the Son of God literally lived amongst humans, that he was nailed to a cross, that he was buried in an actual grave, that he was resurrected and showed up in a physical bodily form. And now, because he is victorious over death, we can have hope for the future. We're responding to that as a fact. Now, if all of that is a work of fiction, it's all just a story that someone made up, then you and I can drop the baton and immediately quit church because it doesn't mean anything. If all of this is a fiction to make us feel better, then Jesus doesn't really mean anything, the church doesn't mean anything. But if it's a fact, if Jesus really showed up and did all of that on our behalf, then it deserves our full devotion. It immediately becomes the most important thing that's ever happened in the history of the world. It becomes the most important thing about you, about me, about the church. And it deserves more than the grand appreciation of a golf clap. It deserves our entire lives. And so our guy Luke, he starts off this history by saying Jesus rose from the dead and appeared to his apostles. Elsewhere in the Bible, we read that Jesus appeared to over 500 others that believed in him. Luke's basically challenging his audience of saying, fact check me. There were people that were still alive that could have refuted all these details, but Luke's saying, this isn't figuratively how it happened. This isn't a once upon a time story. This is literally how all of this got started. Then check out verse 6. It says, then they gathered around him, that being Jesus, and asked him, Lord, are you at this time going to restore the kingdom of Israel? He said to them, it's not for you to know the times or dates the Father has set by his own authority, but you will receive power when the Holy Spirit comes on you. And you will be my witnesses in Jerusalem and in all Judea and Samaria to the ends of the earth. After he said this, he was taken up before their very eyes, and a cloud hid him from their sight. They were looking intently up into the sky as he was going, when suddenly 2 men dressed in white stood beside them. Men of Galilee, they said, why do you stand here looking into the sky? This same Jesus who has been taken from you into heaven will come back in the same way you have seen him go into heaven. Now, in these 5 verses that we just read together, there are a million different things that we could talk about. But because we don't have a million minutes left, I'm going to have to lock in on one idea. And quite frankly, that happens every single week here at Real Life. There is more to say than time to say it. And so that's why tomorrow we're going to start an experimental thing called the Real Life Deep Drive. It's a podcast that you can subscribe to. And every single week, we're going to record about a 15-minute podcast where we take another lap and dig just a little bit deeper into what didn't make the cut for the weekend teaching. It'll paint the picture with a little more color. It'll help you understand the Bible and how to live it out. And it's all going to be about 15 minutes, so it's designed to be listened to on your way into work, as you drive into work, or as you drive into school, or as your kids drive you crazy, or like whatever you got going on. This will be a source of encouragement for you, so I hope you'll subscribe. Check it out tomorrow, the Real Life Deep Drive. But as for today, we're going to lock in on the question that these two messengers asked the apostles, and it went like this: why do you stand here looking? Why are you staring into the sky? Like, what are you waiting for? What do you think is about to happen? Now, we can be gracious to the apostles in this moment, because let's kind of recap exactly what's happened over the last couple days. Jesus, who they had given their entire lives to, was falsely accused of a crime he didn't commit. He was nailed to a cross, buried in an actual grave, rose again, showed them the evidence of the nails in his hands, and now he was just ascended up into the clouds. And in my experience, people don't often float up into the clouds, and so it makes sense that they would be shocked by what they just saw. But the question runs a little bit deeper, because those messengers, they knew the apostles, and they knew you and me, and they knew that left to our own devices, you and I would fall into passivity. Knowing what we know and knowing who Jesus is, we would find the biggest hammock, and we would fill it to the brim with lemonade, and we would enjoy the cool summer breeze, just waiting for Jesus to come back and make all the wrong things right again. But the messengers are saying, now is not the time to rest. Now is not the time to mail it in, to wait for Jesus to do all the work. Now is the time to jump into action. You got to do something. See, I've been thinking a lot about this series, and if I could get you to take one thing away from the next 5 weeks, I would love for you to make a move, and make a move from they to we, from them to us. And here's what I mean. When you go to work, or when you're talking to your friends and you're describing what you did over the weekend, and you describe how much you love this church, the way you do it and the language that you use indicates a lot about how you feel. See, there's a difference between saying, I really love what they do, versus saying, I really love who we are. I really love how they serve the community, versus I really love how we get to love our neighbors. From they to we, from them to us. It's an indication of ownership. You know what people group really understands this subtle shift in language? It's sports fans. Have you ever listened to a sports fan say something like this? Man, did you see over the weekend, we swept the Padres? Did you see who we signed on Monday? I really think that we have a chance to win it all this year. And you want to look back at them and say, bro, you're not on the team. They make you pay money to watch them. If you tried to run on the field, a burly security guard that's been waiting his entire life for this moment will lay you out in front of 20,000 people. You're not we. But the passion of sports fans is not to be reasoned with. They love it so much that they feel like they're a part of it. And friends, if there was ever any movement to where we ought to have even more passion, if there's ever anything that we ought to love even more, it's the fact that the Son of God saw fit to come and live a perfect life on our behalf, go to the cross on our behalf, defeat our ultimate enemy, death, on our behalf, and now has given us the reward that he earned on our behalf. We ought to be just as passionate as that. And so, friends, that's why I'm hoping. That's why I'm hoping maybe even today you will take a step from consumer to contributor. You see, when you and I sit at a table for a meal, our posture indicates to the people around us what we showed up for. And maybe you've sat down at a table and you've strapped on one of these. You ever worn one of these? It's a bib. And when you wear one of these, you are telling the people around you things are about to get messy. The butter from the lobster dinner, it could go anywhere. the sauce from the ribs, it could stain my shirt. And so I'm going to protect myself from what's about to happen in front of me. And when I show up as a consumer, I have high expectations of others, even though I've not contributed anything. I have high expectations of the people that have done the work without any personal participation. You know who that sounds like? It sounds like my kids. Every single day when they sit down at the family dinner table, food magically appears in front of them. It's food that they did not purchase on their own. It is food that they did not contribute to personally preparing. But it is food that occasionally they have the audacity about complaining about when it hits their plate. And it's when I look back at them as a loving father and I say, I brought you into this world. I can take you out of this world, and I can have a whole lot of fun replacing you, all right? Just listen to me. Eat the food on your plate. Now listen, church consumerism is one of the highest indications of immaturity. It's when we have high expectations of others without any personal participation of our own. We watch other people sacrifice while we haven't given up a single thing. And if you wonder whether that consumerism mentality has creeped into your head and your heart, let me just describe to you the ride home that you're about to have in the car. And it's when you look to the other person, you say, you know what? I didn't really like that third song, and I like it better when he tells funny stories. And I can't believe they ran out of donuts, even though I was only 25 minutes late to a 60-minute service. Like, can you imagine? Now, I want to be clear. There's not a single church in the entire world that is above constructive criticism. You will never find the church that's got it all figured out, the one that is perfect. In fact, I don't feel comfortable making too many promises, but real life, I promise you, I will make mistakes. And we will disappoint you in some kind of way. But if the primary theme of your constructive criticism is about how this place didn't meet your personal preferences, it might be time to take off the bib. Today, I'd like to encourage you to maybe move over to this chair and put on one of these. You know, I've heard it said that every man at a certain age decides what he's really going to be into. He's got three choices. It's either going to be World War II, golf, or smoking meats. And I'm proud to say that I hit the trifecta on all three, all right? I am a walking stereotype. Now, one of my favorite things to do when we have friends and family over is to fire up the Traeger and smoke some pork, whether it's burnt-ends or brisket, pulled pork or ribs. And I know it's going to be a labor of love because all of those things take multiple hours to prepare. Sometimes I'll wake up in the middle of the night to make sure that it's ready by dinner. And what's amazing is that the very minute that I strap this thing on, it tells me that the next few hours are not about me. They're about my guests. They're about the people that we invited over. And I get to take on the attitude of a servant that is there to prepare juicy and well-seasoned pork just like Jesus intended, all right? That's what I'm all about. Now, every single time that you come to this place, you're choosing to strap on one of the two. That you can tie on the bib or you can tie on the apron. But may I encourage you that the minute that you show up to this place with an apron kind of attitude, watch how the message gets so much better. Watch how the worship set becomes so much more meaningful. Watch how the way you see other people, they're no longer your secret enemies that are in your way to get out of the parking lot after service, or they're the people that took your favorite seat, but instead they're people to welcome and to encourage. Friends, the apron kind of attitude is what we all need, and it's what God always intended. And that's why today we want to invite you to do that very thing by joining a team. You see, every single week that you come here, you may not know this, but if you love real life, you don't love this place because of the teaching. You don't love it because of the music. You can like all those things, but the reason that you love this place is because hundreds of people have taken off their bib and put on an apron, and they help create an environment so that you can hear Jesus clearly, so that you can find and follow him. And so not only your life will change, but your entire lives, your family's life will change as well. Now, I want to be clear in this invitation to take off the bib and put on an apron that there are a couple seasons where it would be okay to not rush into serving. Some of you, you're new to all this, new to faith and God and church, and you're not even sure where you stand. You got a million questions and you're still asking them, and I want you to know we are so glad you're here. In fact, we've created this environment so that you can do that very thing, so you don't have to feel rushed. We also know that some of you have come to real life after a season at another church, and that season didn't end well. And you're wounded and you're hurting, and we want you to know you can catch your breath and you can heal, but let's not do that forever. In fact, to put a fine point on it, let me say this. If you've been here for 6 months and you're loving it, it's meant something to you, it's been a source of encouragement, you're starting to meet other people, then now would be the time to jump in. The minute you go from consumer to contributor, watch how God uses that activity to not only make things happen, but to grow your faith in him. And I'm confident that this could be the most significant year of spiritual growth if you will take that step, meet people you never would have met otherwise, and watch how God uses you to make a difference. Now, here at Real Life, we always want to make it super easy for you to take those steps. And so you got two options today. And there's a digital option that when you open the Real Life app, you can hit a button that says join a team. And there you can indicate interest in the kind of team that you might be interested in. And I mean that literally. You are not signing up for the team. You're not automatically on it. You're not signing your name in blood saying I'm here every single weekend because quite frankly, we're not sure we want you, all right? I'm just kidding. There's a process, there's an interview, there's training. Like we're gonna make sure that you are successful so that you come alive in your serving. Or on the way out, there are stations where we have volunteers there that can answer your questions. You may want to know, like, where should I fit and how often do people serve and what could I do? And those people would love to help you find your spot here. So you can either do it through the app, you can swing by one of those stations, and I'm hoping you will take that step today. As we wrap up, I'm going to pray a prayer of courage, because I have a feeling that there's a handful of us. This is you. Know that you've been around and you've thought about it. You even mentioned to the person you came with, I'm thinking about jumping in, and this has gotten really specific. And usually when things get really specific, we start wiggling out of it. And so I'm praying that God will give you the courage in this next few moments to take a step, watch your life change, your relationships change, and your investment in the church change. Will you pray with me? God, we love you. And we don't want to love you passively. We don't want to love you theoretically. We want to love you with our time and our efforts and the gifts that you've given us. And when you knit us together in our mother's womb, it wasn't just biologically, but you imparted spiritual gifts inside of us, and the church is incomplete until we all jump in. We all need all of us. And so whatever excuse, whatever explanation, whatever fear is holding us back, will you give us a couple moments of courage to take a step, put ourselves out there, and watch how you will empower us to make a difference far beyond anything that we ever imagined. God, we love you. It's in your son's name I pray. Amen.